turns out that the video I showed yesterday is actually real. One of my subscribers sent me the whole thing. It's recent, as you can see. And indeed, yeah,
Etwas.
like doctors are being trained in the arts of self-defense. As you can see here, they're really into it. And after this training, I have full confidence that if they're ever going to have to face an attacker, they're going to do a very good job at defending themselves, right? Look, even a person with a knife is not capable at handling someone with a cloth. And yeah, I mean, look, everyone is very serious about it. Everyone is into it. So the question is, why is there violence at a hospital, right? Now, I can't talk about a advanced democratic Western nation like Germany because they are light years ahead of us. But I can speak from my experience as working in a Romanian hospital. And to answer the question, are there aggressive patients? The answer is absolutely yes. I mean, think about it. A doctor may be in the situation where they have to tell a parent that the surgery on their child was unsuccessful, that the child passed away. These are not pleasant conversations to have, and the way that the patient can react is not always in a very calm and well-mannered fashion. Another example of violence that I've heard about happening at hospitals was during the pandemic, when after vaccination, certain individuals experienced, I wouldn't say side effects because the vaccines were safe and effective, but like coincidences, right? Like coincidences, maybe they couldn't move their arms, or maybe they were experiencing a stroke, or like something like that would never be associated to the vaccine. But unfortunately, their family members weren't persuaded by the science. They weren't convinced by social media and the television. So they actually went to the hospital in order to have a conversation based around the science with the doctors. I did hear cases like that. But since the pandemic is long over, I don't think that this is why the German doctors are doing this military close quarter combat training. No, I think it has to do with another thing, which is happening in my country as well. But I need to be very careful with how I express it, because you see, German people are very sensitive to words. You gotta frame it in a way that doesn't upset their sensibilities. So I need to put it in a manner that doesn't offend the terms of service of this platform, right? There are certain individuals that live in enclaves. I mean, they have their own customs, their own practices, which sometimes differ from that of the nation state. And they also believe that the systems of the system are systemically systemized against them, that the country is racist towards them. And when they interact with a public institution, they have a lot of fear and suspicion towards that institution. The hospital is a public institution, by the way, and it's acting on behalf of the government. So when the grandma gets sick and she goes to the hospital, they may believe that the doctors aren't giving her premium care. They may believe that she is waiting more than she should, or they believe that the doctors aren't doing enough, in which case violence can happen. Is this a situation that I have seen? Yes. Is it something that's happening often? Not in Romania. Again, Germany is a much more developed Western democracy, so I don't know how things are there. But in my country, you would hear about these incidents. Occasionally, it would be like, yes, in that hospital 7 months ago, it happened, and there were like 5 individuals, and the doctors had to lock themselves in a room until the cops arrived. Like, you hear about them, right? But again, they're very rare, and it's not required that the doctors learn the intricate arts of self-defense. I mean, Jesus, look at this. Holy shit. Right. Now, if we are to assume that this is something that's happening so frequent that you are worried for the doctor's safety, I don't believe that the situation is to trade women into becoming instruments of death I understand girl power is quite predominant in the West, right? So like they're obviously going to train some of their strongest units in order to face off against the evil attackers. And they're smiling now, but I assume that by the end of the training, they're going to be instruments of death to anyone that even thinks about doing something wrong in the hospital. The solution is already found, by the way. Like, we already know how to handle these cases. We have these things called mental institutes. And at the mental institute, you have patients that pose a danger to themselves and others. And the hospital is designed with the idea that violence can happen at any time, any place. So they have a little button, it's called the panic button. And when you press the panic button, you summon the men in white. And the men in white have different weapons throughout the time period. And it also depends on the country you're in. In the beginning, they used to have these batons that were made out of rubber because you don't want to break bones, but you want to convince the person that maybe they should stop resisting. Now they also had tasers, but that didn't really work because if you're trying to hold the person down and you're tasing them, it does collateral damage, doesn't work really well. So the baton was still used for quite a while, but they can also hire someone that's more muscular than the person doing the attack, and they usually have a syringe, and now that is the weapon, is the syringe, which may or may not cause side effects because usually like putting people with anesthetic in a situation where you don't know how much they weigh, you don't really know what side effects they have, like you gotta do it in order to immobilize them, isn't very recommended, but again, it is much better than whatever this is, right? Huh? I mean, I would be scared to go against her. I'm really glad that she's getting the training. I think it's working. Of course, the problem is that the government doesn't want it to be seen as a problem, and they're doing this in order to, I guess, make doctors feel more safe. It's like, don't worry about it. He may have a knife. He may have a machete. There may be 6 of them. But we're going to teach you what to do in that situation. Then you just lightly tap, right? Like just tap, tap, and they're going to just surrender. This is beyond ridiculous. I do believe that doctors need to be kept safe, especially in certain clinics, because some are more dangerous than others. It depends if you're in a rural area or if you're in a city. It depends the type of section you have. If you have people that are drug addicts and they're coming into the hospital, they may react violently just because they're going through withdrawal. Can also happen to chronic drinkers. There are many cases where patients that were used to drinking every day got into the hospital where they're not allowed to drink. And after 1 or 2 days, they became incredibly violent and aggressive, not necessarily towards the staff, but also to fellow patients. So again, they were a danger to themselves and others. Now, what we do in Eastern Europe, or at least we used to do when I was still working, we tie them to the bed. Doesn't look good on cameras. There was a scandal about it. But it's very effective. And the patients themselves are actually grateful for it because the alternative is to send them home or to send them to prison. And usually they're like realizing that they acted in a poor manner, like grabbing a knife and charging at a nurse is not a good look. And instead of having the cops called on them, they were just tied to the bed and left like that until they got through the alcoholic withdrawal. And in many cases, the patients are, understanding and they don't press charges because they don't want charges pressed against them. But as I said, it doesn't look good on cameras. Like there were a couple of reporters that went into a hospital and showed some patients tied to the bed, and it was like a massive. So maybe they're not doing it now. I know they did it to Jordan Peterson though. I know for a fact they did that because he was also in withdrawal, not because he was taking drugs, but because the doctors prescribed drugs to him, and those prescription drugs weren't making him better. And he actually had to go to Russia, where I think is the same school of thought like Eastern Europe has. It's like they tie you to a bed until you go through the symptoms. It doesn't really work in developed nations. Like Western societies don't do that. Human rights and all of it, right? So like in a Western society, just call the cops and they go in jail. And I don't think they're going to be very aggressive next to the other inmates because the other inmates may be a little bit more aggressive than they are. So yeah, that's how you handle it. But regarding this, yeah, I would recommend against it. Like, if you're a doctor, it really depends. If you are in a hospital where violence happens frequently, I guess, if you're not allowed to carry any sort of self-defense, like you're not allowed to have pepper spray, you're not allowed to have a taser, you're not allowed to have a baton, you're not allowed to have anything, then hit the gym. Although doctors don't really have time to hit the gym, that's the problem, right? You're kind of screwed. Yeah. Besides the towel, I'm actually curious. I would ask the instructor, but like, if I put a lock inside my pocket, right? Would it actually be better, right? Like here, like if I have a lock, a bike lock or something, and I forget it in my pocket, if a guy charges me with a knife, because it's self-defense, right? Would it be a little bit more effective? Would it actually help the situation? Like, you have someone charging you with the knife, and the only thing you have is your lab coat. Well, what if I forget a bottle of soap inside my pocket or something like that? Would that help? I'm just curious how the instructor would think. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.